All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So this is the second part two of the undrafted free agents that the New York Jets have brought in so far, right? Part one, I posted pretty late last night, I think around like 11:30 or something like that. If you haven't checked it out, I'll link it down below in the description box. But let's jump into this next crop of players that are going to Jets rookie minicamp. And keep in mind, the Jets have invited, extended an invitation to other prospects. They still might be deciding, right? Because, a lot of these different guys have multiple offers out on the table, but these, the guys that we're going to be talking about are the ones that are signed to the New York Jets. Okay, so first up is Eric Watts, a defensive lineman from UConn. And first things first, the New York Jets paid him a ton of money. We're talking over 200 grand. At 6'6", 274, he was actually he was being mocked a lot in the later portion of the draft. He ran a 4.67 40, and he had really nice production over the last 2 years at UConn. Lots of tackles for loss. And also, he appeared in 47 career games, which is really, really important. So one thing that was super weird that came out yesterday was the Jets randomly in the middle of the draft traded John Franklin Myers to the Denver Broncos for, honestly, like nothing, a 2026 sixth round pick. For a guy that's, in my opinion, is pretty valuable to the football team. And I understand it, right? The defensive line is a strength. We have edge rushers. We have interior guys. The Jets brought in Lecky Fotu, Kinlaw, traded for Hassan Reddick. I get it. Joe Douglas and Saleh addressed it in the post-draft press conference where they said pretty much the minute that they acquired Hassan Reddick, they knew that they weren't going to be able to keep JFM at his price. But I mean, man, just the timing of the trade was super weird, right? You got to think that if JFM was dealt earlier, even if it was 24, 48 hours, I mean, ideally probably the day before the draft, if he was dealt then, I mean, at least you can maybe hit the draft with a bigger need. But then again, you can make an argument, well, since the Jets knew this was coming down the pipeline, since the Reddick deal, they've had a lot of time to figure out the defensive line. And as we all know, the Jets didn't really draft a defensive lineman in round 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It wasn't really until the undrafted free agent market. So this is kind of how it all ties in with Eric Watts. I'm not going to sit here and put like that pressure on Eric Watts or anything like that, to come in and be the next JFM. But I do find it pretty interesting that the Jets trade away JFM randomly in the middle of the draft. In my opinion, Denver got a steal, especially because he restructured his contract with Denver. And then we go out and we sign 3 to 4 defensive linemen immediately in the undrafted free agent pool, shelling out a lot of money, all things considered. Next up, another defensive lineman here, Tyreek Jackson from South Carolina. At 6'4", 270, Jackson is an athletic freak. He only played in 4 games a year ago because of a knee injury, but man, I mean, just the 40 time alone, at again, 6'4", 270, he ran a 4.68. Think about if you're on the other end of that for a second, right? You got somebody that big, that strong, running that fast directly to you. I mean, that's kind of a freaky thought, right? Did some damage throughout the course of his, South Carolina career, and here we are again talking about another defensive lineman added to this Jets group. The Jets did something similar to this last year at the safety position, right? I felt like they really, really liked Trey Dean, and they did not want to see him go in the end, but I feel like it's something similar here with the defensive line. Okay, so next up, tight end from Sacramento State, Marshall Martin. At 6'1", 222, Martin ran a 4.51 40. He is considered a quote-unquote undersized tight end, but he had 3 really productive years from 2019 through 2022, and overall in that span had 25 receiving touchdowns. The tight end room is interesting. Obviously, the Jets passed on Brock Bowers, but Tyler Conklin looks to be the guy. We'll see if any other free agent moves happen. I highly doubt it to this point. Jeremy Ruckert, though, of course, a young developmental guy who I'm really hoping gets some more opportunities this season. of course, Kenny Yeboah still kind of buried on the depth chart. Let's see if he separates or makes some noise in preseason here. Next up, Marcus Riley, wide receiver from Florida A&M. This to me screams special teams acquisition. Riley's 5'10", 175 pounds, a Bethune-Cookman transfer. Last season had 34 catches, 584 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. But here's the kicker, right? He averaged 17.1 yards per reception. In other words, this guy is a big play machine. He made a lot of noise with the big, exciting types of plays at Florida A&M. And again, I do expect him to have some sort of role in preseason with this Jets special teams unit, given the new rules. Okay, so next up is Al Blades Jr., from cornerback from Duke. This is interesting, right? Because Blades came out of Miami or Fort Lauderdale as a 3-star, commits to Miami, spent a lot of time there, and then in his last year of eligibility, transfers over to Duke and had a really, really good season. Playing under Mike Elko, of course, a great defensive mind who, ends up getting the head coaching job over at Texas A&M. But you look at what Blades did a year ago. He had 10 passes defended against and 47 tackles a year ago. And overall, throughout Blades' career, he appeared in 61 games with 26 starts. Next up, Lincoln Sephi, tight end, South Alabama. Although he does project to the NFL more so as maybe a fullback or a traditional blocking tight end. Not the most dynamic receiving type of tight end. And we can take a look at his size, 6'2", 240. I think blocking, again, maybe another special teams, player that the Jets look at as a special teams contributor. This could make some sense as far as the blocking is considered. When I think about Tyler Conklin, when I think about Jeremy Ruckert, when I think about the fullback position on this New York Jets team, nobody really stands out as a dynamic blocker, again, at those two positions for me. So I think, maybe there's something there. And we also have Shaheem Battle, cornerback from NC State. Now, this one is one of my favorite acquisitions that the Jets have made here, probably right next to Monroe, the corner from Tulane, the 6'2" long corner from Tulane, who, by the way, was first team All-AAC. Talked about him in part 1. But no, Battle is interesting because you look at his NC State career, he was actually a 4-year starter. Like, not just, he started 2 games his freshman year and anything like that. No, he was literally a go-to starter all 4 years of college. And if you can do that at the ACC level with the Wolfpack defense under Dave Doran, who's an aggressive, violent defensive mind, that says something about, I would say, the mental and physical makeup of Battle. He had 7 career picks and he's 6'1", 185 pounds. This is somebody who, in my opinion, also, by the way, has the potential to bounce over to safety. I like the move. I do. I like, first of all, safety and corner. Those are my favorite. Defensive back, it's my favorite position in football. So it gets me fired up to whenever the New York Jets are bringing in guys, right? No matter if it's a first round pick like Gardner or Revis, or if it's a later round guy, or even, in this case, an undrafted free agent. So those guys always get me juiced up. I always like to kind of see the development with players like that, because you'll never know who you're going to find. I feel like cornerback is one of those positions where, if you don't want to draft one in the first round, you don't have to. You can always find good corners. It's more so a question of development and system fit. And it's interesting too because, certain teams like their specific skills, right? You look at a team like Seattle, the Jets, right? They prefer the long, athletic corners, the guys that can quickly react, guys that can make plays with the football in front of them, guys that can drop back in a zone, but then explode up to make a play. In the short passing game, you have teams like the New Orleans Saints, who focus on press man, right? The bump and run type of coverage. So lots of different, skill sets to go around. It's actually my favorite class that the Jets have had in the last couple of years. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, and as always, go Jets.